Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I'm Hillary. I'm Matt's wife. I thought it would be fun today to record a kind of like wife's reaction to how her husband got into real estate, how we got into real estate. I haven't watched the video yet. It actually came out over a month ago, so that Matt would probably be annoyed by that. He probably will be if he watches this. So I am going to watch it for the first time here, and then I am going to just comment and let you guys know on my thoughts on what he's saying about how he got into real estate. Okay. All right, I'm just going to pause right here because I think it's pretty funny that Matt just said it's episode 0, but YouTube actually says it's episode 1. So I don't know if that needs to be fixed or if that was a decision that was made later, but maybe we should get like a star asterisk in there that says, just kidding, 0, because it definitely doesn't match. All right, anyway, moving on. Okay, so I'm going to pause right here for a minute. I think one of the interesting things about real estate that Matt didn't quite touch on is that generally people who get into real estate have somewhat of like construction or just like are like handy people. They have that like background of just being handy and of having worked on houses in the past. So I'm surprised that he didn't kind of start this out talking about how like, oh, when I was 12 or, I don't know what year, when I was 12 or whatever, that I helped my grandfather build this and that, or, that I was going, and doing work with my dad or working, I believe he worked construction in the summer and like those sorts of things. So I think that really is probably the intro even before this. But yeah, from a active duty and veterans perspective, it sounds like he just jumped into when I was in Connecticut in Groton. Okay, so I think the agent that he's talking about right here is Margie. So I will give a shout out to Margie. Margie has been around. I've known her since I met Matt as well. He sold one property shortly after we met, and then when he finished the renovation on another property that he had bought, we used her as well. She also helped us find some investment properties, which he'll probably discuss coming up. Okay, so I'm going to pause right here. So this property that Matt's speaking about is one that we actually referred to as like the farmhouse. So if you ever watch HGTV, you'll see that a lot of times there's like a nickname for every property. It sounds like this is the first property that he ever really gave a nickname to. So that's the one that we used to call the farmhouse. So I'm going to pause here because he did call out specifically that he put 20% down on that. So anyone that, is active duty might know that the VA doesn't require you to put down 20%, but most other conventional loans do. So one of the things that he didn't really highlight within this video is like how great of a product they offer to the service members and previous service members with the VA loan. So definitely something to take advantage of if you're active duty or previously active duty, and I'm sure he will have other podcasts specific to VA loans. so I'm gonna pause here because he said that he did the work himself. I think he does need to give a shout out. I don't know if he'll call it out later, to his cousin Sean, who did a lot of work with him on this house as well. So I don't know if Sean really stepped in on the end of this project. Matt and I weren't together when he bought the house, so I can't really speak to how much work Sean did on the house to begin with, but he did help a lot, at least in the period in which Matt and I were together working on this house. So Sean also, his cousin, but yeah, had a background in construction, had been doing construction for a long time. Sean's dad owned a construction company, although that company never actually did any work on the farmhouse. So just a shout out to Sean there. So Matt was actually just texting me as he kind of was saying the intro about how he met me and how, plans for the property had changed. So I might have missed a little bit there, but I think what he was talking about was how we were living in Jacksonville at the time. So his decision to move into this house, based on when he had sold the previous home, kind of got changed up when we started living together in Jacksonville. Okay, gonna pause here as well. So one of the things that, maybe he's just about to say it, maybe not, that I think he just kind of like stumbled on or talked about without actually saying it, was the Burr Method, where you essentially buy a property, you repair, refurbish, or renovate, whatever the R stands for, and then you refinance it. So he didn't call it out, but basically the process that he went through with the farmhouse was essentially, as far as I understand it anyway, Burr. He just didn't know it at the time. Okay, gonna. Oh, I skipped backwards, so I'm gonna have to move forwards in a bit. But so I think he was just talking about Justin. Shout out to Justin, who showed us a bunch of properties in Jacksonville. So before we kind of made maybe Matt would tell you that he wanted to buy the whole time. But before I wanted to buy, we looked at houses for rentals in Jacksonville. And it was really just, for me, about the price point of what you had to pay to rent as compared to what you would, pay in your mortgage to buy. So seeing that difference and that markup for renting is really what made me feel comfortable committing to buying, because it is a big decision to buy, and essentially you want to do what's best for your finances. At least that's the way I look at it. So, otherwise I might have just rented forever. All right, let me see if I can find where I was. Okay, so here's another thing that he didn't talk about. So we actually had wanted this house, and I kind of got cold feet. And I think he had even mentioned it to me, no, you got to move fast in real estate. And then, before we knew it, before we put an offer in, the house was pending. And luckily for us, the house, the sale of the house to whomever else had offered on it actually fell through. And because it was a foreclosure, the bank actually dropped the price $10,000. So advantageous to us, but definitely kind of a lesson in how quickly the market can move. And that was back in, I don't know, 2015. So nothing like the hot market that it is right now. Yeah, so I can't recall if what our options were when we purchased the property, but the property did need a new roof, if I remember. So that was the reason that we pretty much had to go the 203K route. So I don't know if we had decided not to take a loan out for the renovations, if it would have been different in terms of proving that we were going to fix the roof. But the bank was very concerned that, that this house not be purchased essentially to be like squat in while the roof was leaking, but that the house was repaired. Yeah, so if I remember correctly, we went a little bit over budget on the renovation, and we actually ended up putting some money on I want to say a Lowe's credit card. So one of the great things about refinancing was that when we got cash out, we were able to pay off that credit card. I do believe it was a 0% interest credit card to begin with. And it pretty much just had, I think, expenses from Lowe's, since that's where we were probably buying materials or something like that. But I don't think you called that out, which is definitely something that I do remember happening. Yeah. So he kind of skipped ahead here. So I guess one of the R's in Burr after refinance is to rent it out. So at the point that we bought the house, we actually weren't sure if Matt was going to stay in the Navy or not. And then when he got picked up to become an officer, we decided to stay in. And that's where when we realized that we were going to have to rent it. So like I said before, I think the first Burr that he did before he knew it was a Burr was actually the Farmhouse. But we essentially did eventually, at least when the military moved us out to Guam, ended up with that last R of Burr to rent our house in Jacksonville as well. Okay, so pausing right here for a minute. So when we talked about multifamilies originally, I think one of the things that we discussed in particular at that point was how the markets that we were looking in, namely being the market in Jacksonville when we first started looking, but then also the market in Kings Bay, are markets that have military renters. So we knew that there would be a lot of people moving in and moving out, and having that kind of stable military paycheck to make sure that they could pay their rent. So that is something that we considered when we were looking for investment properties. Yeah, so the decision to move onto base, originally when we found out we were moving to Guam, we didn't want to live on base. We wanted to live off base. And we actually had contacted a realtor ahead of time. But when we moved, we knew that I wanted to work. And so I was still looking for a job. And so we weren't really comfortable with buying anything anywhere when we didn't know where I would be working. So that was kind of that, and just the stress of like a transcontinental like move was really the reason that we decided to move onto base. So I am a little bit surprised that he didn't call out one more thing as a huge call out, basically, in that the market in Indiana was good. It was cheap. So when you're talking about going from I think five or six doors at this point to 40 doors, depending on how expensive those houses are, it's obviously going to take more or less time. So Indiana just really gave us a great foot in the door in that we could purchase properties with cash that we had, with an amount of cash that other people had, and then turn those over and, follow that Burr process. Yeah, so a good property manager, excellent thing to have. So just a call out there. He hasn't really talked about it too much in discussing the Burr Method, but our property manager, at least one of our two in Indiana, I'm not sure if both of them, but also does do kind of like project management for renovations. So that definitely helped us in facilitating growing our business. Yeah, so something he just called out, which I'm not sure, if he discussed in too much detail or clarified that well, is that what he's talking about here is going from like hard money for the original purchase of the property and the renovation to then kind of some more of the standard mortgage products when you do the refinance. So yeah. Yeah, so he kind of just jumped straight into the sales pitch there, but one of the things that he called out specifically at the end there that wasn't really talked about too much during the rest of the video is that there is kind of like an administrative process and background that you probably should go through, at least if you are interested in real estate investing. So we do have, a LLC, a S Corp. We actually had multiple LLCs at one point, and then we merged them into a single one. So there is a lot of, those sorts of things that should be wrapped up into it. And then you also probably want to get some, have a CPA on your side, basically, when you go through this process as well. All right, so that was the video there. If you see me smiling, I just wanted to make the call out at the end that it's funny that, we're talking about passive income and building wealth through real estate here, but he just called out how much time he spends texting and chatting and following up and networking and those sorts of things. So, there definitely are real estate investors that are like totally hands off. Not exactly how it is here, especially since we do have our own real estate brokerage. If you guys need to find a house or a rental unit in Guam, definitely, come talk to us. And like he said, like and subscribe. Also, let me know if you liked my reaction video. Honestly, I felt like I had a lot more like educational stuff to say than I originally intended. I thought it was going to be kind of more of like a commentary about just, our story in general, and it kind of ended up being more education on the matter. So I hope that wasn't boring. Anyway, thanks guys. Bye.